I was really looking forward to Howl because, well, there are a few reasons. I love films set on trains. I love horror films set inside vehicles, whether it's trains or planes. I think the confined space makes it quite scary. And I'm trying to expand my go-tos when it comes to horror films, and I don't usually gravitate towards werewolf films. So I was keen to see how I'd feel about this, whether it would spark a new love of werewolf films. And I can now conclude that the film was largely very boring, not good to look at, and it wasn't scary. And the characters were so dull and kind of annoying as well. I really didn't like this. And I will go into a bit more detail about why I didn't like it at all, but I won't give any spoilers just in case you do decide to watch it. This was released in 2015. It's directed by Paul Hyett and written by Mark Huckerby and Nick Ostler. And it's about a bunch of passengers on a train. And I will say that part of the narrative to get us to the horror aspect was well written. They're on a train. There's a problem with the train. They have to stop. And then there's a problem with the signals. So they're stuck on board. They can't call for help. And there's a werewolf outside. And the setup works really well. I have absolutely no issues with it. And to be honest, there isn't anything wrong with the actual structure of the story, the pacing of the narrative. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's not scary. The characters are very boring. And it's not attractive to look at. And again, I'll expand on that in a moment. With regards to the werewolf, the character of the werewolf, yeah, I liked how that was done. I liked the movements, the camera angles as we have the movements of the werewolf, the speed of the movement, and often when the werewolf would jump, the sounds would stop, the music would stop, the noise would stop, we'd have that shock of silence, and that was very well done as well. Credit where it's due, the sound effects and music all really added to the horror elements. Again, it wasn't scary, but it definitely created an atmosphere. And this bit I didn't like. They also, as many horror films do, tried to create an atmosphere by making the entire film in near darkness. And I'm very much of the mind that a good horror film does not need to turn the lights almost all of the way off to be scary. I feel like it's a common thing for a lot of horror films to think, well, if everything's in darkness or near darkness, that will make it more scary, more spooky. But I just find it really ugly to look at for the entirety of the film, and it's about an hour and a half. The length is not a problem, but the entirety of the film, they're either on a train with next to no lights, or we have some scenes outside. It's late at night, so it's obviously dimly lit. And I just feel like they should have found a way to at least make the scenes inside the train, and granted the bulk of it is in the train, they should have kept the lights on there. Because I don't think the darkness was necessary to make it more scary, but it's really ugly to look at. It's not an entertaining film visually, and I feel like it's just a really common misconception that horror films need to be in darkness to be scary. There are some amazing horror films where they actually have really good lighting and it's not a strain to see what's going on and we can actually see the sets properly and enjoy them. It's kind of hard to enjoy the train setting when I'm squinting to make out the details. So that was a really bad decision, but they're not alone. Many horror films do that, and I think it's largely a bad mistake. If it's all dark, the dark no longer becomes scary. And that definitely was a problem here. The characters, as I said, are boring. Nothing wrong with the performances, no issues. The characters are just incredibly dull. I didn't like any of them. I didn't care if any of them died. I didn't care at all. And I found some of them to be a little bit irritating as well. So for me, Howl just didn't really have anything to offer. As a premise, absolutely love it. Horror film set on train with a creepy monster, i.e. the werewolf, outside. Yeah, as a concept, absolutely love it. The narrative itself is well enough written, so I guess if this were a novel, or if I were reading the screenplay, it would actually probably be quite interesting. But the characters are really irritating, or just very boring. The lighting is just so ugly. It's not nice to look at. Visually, it's not great. And if you're watching a film, it's supposed to be good to look at. And that's not the case here. So for me, it just didn't tick enough boxes. And the big one, of course, is it's not scary. I didn't find it scary at all. Occasionally, with the right music and some camera work, a little bit atmospheric, but definitely not a film that made me scared. I want to watch this or this kind of film and not want to get on a train for a very long time. And honestly, I could go on a train right now. I don't care. So, not very effective as a horror film. As a concept, not bad, but unfortunately, the execution for Howl was very, very weak. And unfortunately, I don't recommend it.